Tonight we explore the root causes of the new rift, the significance of Takahachi's reinterpretation of Japan's defense posture, China's increasingly forceful reactions, and the broader implications for the Taiwan Strait and East China Sea. Joining us are two distinguished guests, Marvin Lee, geopolitical analyst from Hong Kong, specializing in cross-strait affairs and Chinese diplomatic strategy, Professor Satoru, Nagano, fellow at Hudson Institute from Tokyo. Together we examine whether the confrontation marks a momentary turbulence or the early stages of an emerging strategic showdown in East Asia. Welcome to both our distinguished guests, and we start off with Mr. Lee. How do you assess the current escalation between China and Japan over Taiwan since Interior Minister Sanai Takaichi remarks?
Assalamu alaikum. Shukran li istidafati. Barakallahu fikum. From the Chinese perspective, this escalation is not accidental. The Japanese new prime minister publicly suggests that a Chinese operation in Taiwan could be a survival-threatening situation for Japan, opening the door to Japanese military involvement under the Chinese 15 security law. And this is seen in Beijing as a clear break from previous strategic ambiguity and as direct interference in China's internal affairs from the Chinese perspective. And in response, China summoned the Japanese ambassador and has now issued traveling warnings and very sharp official statement warning Japan not to misjudge China's determination on Taiwan.
Sir, sorry to interrupt you here. Do you want to say your narrative is that Japan is interfering in China's sovereignty and internal affairs?
Honestly, from the Chinese perspective, Taiwan is a part of China, and from the past history, Taiwan was also a part of China. So like in our history, so that's why we believe that this is a part of our sovereignty, and we have the right to defend our national interests.
Got your point, sir. Professor Nagao, how significant is Japan's shift towards labeling a Taiwan conflict as an existential threat, sir?
Firstly, the most importantly, the PM Takaichi's remark is just honest and not to change Japan's stance. Japan is very close to Taiwan, so if something has happened, for example, the China's invasion to Taiwan, this is a crisis for Japan, of course, because only 100-kilometer distance, war has happened, and big war has happened. It is crisis for Japan, it is no doubt. So Japan hasn't shifted our foreign policy. This is just honest explanation of our opinion, and for a long time, this is our stance, not changed, not updated. Just the same. This is, if you believe that this is a change, this is a completely mistake. Japan hasn't changed. And if crisis happen in Taiwan, this is Japan's crisis. No doubt. Because of the too close from Taiwan we live in. That's the situation. Thank you.
Mr. Marvin Lee, I want you to answer Mr. Nagao, if you heard him, and your take on what he said.
I think our guest from Tokyo, Japan, has made a very good point about geopolitics, but his geopolitical point of view is from the Japanese side. And let me share our thought from the Chinese side. So back in the 1890s, so the Japanese Empire would like to expand the survival, like the excuse of survival, and they invade the Korean Peninsula and a part of China, like the Northeast China, and even Taiwan, and as a first step to further invade China because of the history. So this is a part of the Chinese civilization, and this is our history. So that's why when the Chinese military and the Chinese people, they learned the history, we have the right to defend our sovereignty, because whoever got Taiwan and whoever will control and dominate the Western sphere of the planet, or even the Western Pacific Ocean. So that's why Taiwan is really important for the Chinese side and for the Japanese side. And of course, the Taiwanese people, they share the similar cultural root with the Chinese as well. Like we both use chopstick, we speak a similar language, we have similar root, so we are a family, honestly. So I don't want to see any possible physical conflict between Taiwan and China, or even China and Japan, because I would like to have a peace. But the Chinese people and the Chinese government, the military, they are also ready to cope with any situations to stop any aggression from other countries.
Your take, Mr. Nagao?
Agreement has happened between Japan and China in 1972, and clearly mentioned about China will not change the status quo by force. So if China invade Taiwan, internal or external is not the matter. This is violation of the agreement. So Japan will not accept it. But in this case, PM Takaichi hasn't mentioned the sovereignty. Internal matter or external matter, that's not, he did not mention. Crisis happen just side of Japan is crisis for Japan, she said. That is very simple. So China say this is sovereignty issue. That's not true. That's not completely true. China escalates the situation. And one of the things that I need to mention, Consular General of China in Osaka said, chop the Prime Minister Takaichi's head, he mentioned in the SNS after this. This is very rude. Japanese are very angry because the Japanese diplomat did not say, we will cut Xi Jinping's head. That is very rude because we are polite. China is not. That is very important thing in this case.
Mr. Lee, do you want to answer?
First of all, I do not want to answer any response with such an emotional approach, because as he has mentioned before, it's not the Chinese sovereignty to Chinese matter to deal with Taiwan. But I would like to address that it's also not the Japanese matter to deal with Taiwan at the same time, because Taiwan itself is an island, and I totally disagree the saying that, like, if Taiwan has some problem and the Japanese will go and help. And obviously Okinawa used to be a part of the Chinese empire, like as a tribunal like a tribe system. And because of the Japanese empire during the Meiji Restoration, the modern Japanese army and navy invade different parts of Asia, and they killed lots of people at the First Sino-Japanese War and Second Sino-Japanese War and Pacific War, and they never apologized to the Asian people, no matter they are Thai, Indonesian, and Chinese right now, and they keep praying to the Japanese general during the World War II. So which is a painful lesson for all Chinese civilization. And as I've mentioned before, Chinese civilization and Chinese people would like to make peace, would like to talk and negotiate instead of having any war. But as Sanju said, we have to be ready to cope with any special situation, to deal with any aggression, because we have to cope with
Okay, I got your point. Mr. Lee, what historical factors continue to influence the China-Japan relationship in this context?
Okay, let me share with you our Chinese anthem first. So there is lyrics. So when there is a dangerous moment of the entire Chinese civilization, and all Chinese people will be united together to build a new Great Wall of China, to deal with any bullet, any aggression from the foreigner. And our anthem, our Chinese national anthem, was written during the Japanese invasion on China in 1937, and this is one of the historical facts. And they caused lots of brutal fact, like Nanjing massacre, and lots of painful lessons against us. And they also invade my hometown Hong Kong since the December 1941 until the Japanese surrender in mid-August 1945, and this is a historical fact. But honestly, some of the Japanese people, they do not want to accept the fact. But I have some Japanese friends. They said like we have to look forward to make peace together. But sometimes, honestly, we have a very close distance, but we have a very far ideological approach, unfortunately.
Professor Nagao, what role does Japan's alliance with the United States play in Tokyo's Taiwan strategy? And could you please nail the point that's really frustrating you, because you're very frustrated in this context?
Because China provokes many other countries, including Japan, that's why we try to cooperate with the United States very strongly. For example, the last August, so some months ago, what happened? The Philippine President Marcos mentioned about they cannot escape from the Taiwan crisis. This is a similar remark of the PM Takaichi this time.
It's only what's happening is only statements. It's nothing actually happened on the ground to make you that frustrated. And statements are everywhere.
Yeah, because everything related to China. China provoked that, and everywhere it has happened. Against India, against the Philippines, against Japan, every time. That's why they cooperate with the United States. China make this alliance. So that's why if China change the attitude, situation will change. But this time, China did the same. Escalate the situation themselves.
Okay,
that's why
so can you find a solution to what's happening? Or can you just
Of course,
tell
China backed down their remark. Cutting the Japanese leader's head? Is this the proper way? I do not think so. Japanese diplomat did not say we will cut Xi Jinping's head. We are polite. China is not.
I beg your pardon, we will cut what?
Cut his head. Chinese diplomat said, clearly said China's PM's Takaichi's head. They said, they tweeted.
Okay, go ahead, sir, go ahead.
The Consular General of the Chinese Consular General in Osaka clearly tweeted the cut the dirty head of Japanese leader. That was really made it. And Japan told the Chinese Ministry of the Foreign Affairs this is severely inappropriate. It is true because that guy is official Chinese diplomat and cutting the head of the leader of Japan. That is, of course, inappropriate, but really, they did it.
Okay, sir. This is the questions to Mr. Nagao. Mr. Nagao, the United States has approved a $330 million arm deal to supply Taiwan with non-standard spare parts and technical support for its F-16 fighter jets, C-130 aircraft, and indigenous defense fighter fleets. How do you see the positioning of the United States in the middle of all that's happening?
Yes, this is quite helpful because China spent 6 times bigger military expenditure than Japan. Compared to Taiwan, completely different level their defense spending is. Why China needs such kind of the huge defense budget? So of course China is planning to invade. That's why we worry about. That's why the U.S. weapon to supply to Taiwan is good news for Japan. Not only for Taiwan, but also for Japan. This is good. For Philippines, this is good. Australia will join this move. This is good because China's provocation is too much. So that's why this is the situation China creates. So China should change the attitude. That is the solution. Without this, we need to reply.
Mr. Lee, do you see China's summoning of Japan's ambassador is signaling steps yet to come?
Yes, in Chinese diplomacy, summoning an ambassador with a very strong language is usually a serious but a controlled step. So the foreign ministry has already called the Japanese Prime Minister's comments extremely wrong and dangerous, and said Japan would bear the consequence if it intervenes in the Taiwan Strait. And I would like to respond to my Japanese fellow in this TV channel. And he keeps saying that China is very dangerous, very aggressive, like have lots of military budget to against or planning to invade Taiwan. But if you look at the Google Maps, there are lots of American naval air force base along from Japan, from South Korea, Philippines, Singapore, Indonesia, Australia to contain China. So which country is really a threat to destabilize the regional stability?
Which country is a threat?
So which country? I think this is a very simple answer for audience to think about this. So that I've already given a very obvious hints. So that's why China has a right to defend itself, and the Japanese government does not have any right to urge China to change the attitude. So, for example, the Chinese government has been also urging the Japanese Japanese government not to deal with the Taiwan issue, to respect the Chinese sovereignty, but they never listen. So why should the Chinese government listen to the Japanese government? So we have to prepare for the worst in case of any situation like back in 1937.
Got your point, sir. Professor Nagao, what domestic political calculations in Tokyo are driving this new assertiveness? Does Takaichi framing provide legal justification for broader Japanese military deployment from your own perspective, sir?
That is just very strange because China spend 6 times bigger amount of the budget for military than Japan. 6 times bigger. Why China feels threat from Japan? One sixth, very small military budget Japan spend compared with China. Why China thinks Japan is threat? 6 times bigger great power. Worry about small Japan? I do not think so. So that's why China's logic is completely strange. China provoke other countries, and other countries suffered this attitude of China. China should change their attitude to be peaceful one. Prime Minister Takaichi's remark is just honest, but not provocative. This is just explain the possibility. Why that is the matter? That is just honest explanation. This is not hawkish. This is very moderate. So that's why we cannot understand China's logic. It looks like China is a victim. I do not think so. We are the victim and China is perpetrator.
China is a perpetrator. This is the words of you, Professor Nagao. Mr. Lee, from China's perspective, how does the Taiwan issue fit into its broader national unity objectives?
This is a very good question.
Thank you,
So,
sir.
there is a term called the Chinese PLA, People's Liberation Army. And Taiwan is an unfinished business for the Chinese perspective. So that's why the Chinese government would like to liberate or unite Taiwan as a part of China. And if I would like to further address the so-called like China has 6 times military bigger than Taiwan or Japan, like I couldn't hear. And first of all, China is a very peaceful country. They never.
Do you mean what Professor Nagao said?
They never invade.
Mr. Lee, do you mean what Mr. Nagao said?
They never invade other foreign countries. But the Japanese government, but the Japanese empire, the Japanese civilization used to have a very strong military to invade the entire Asia and even the American. But they suffer from 2 atomic bombs at the end. So who was the threat and who is the real threat? right? So I think like it is not just a debate. So like they just don't turn from white to black, and from turn. So China will remain will uphold the justice.
Who do you see the threat, Mr. Lee?
I say again.
Who do you see the threat?
We never see the threat from either countries. Obviously, China has the right to protect its sovereignty in terms of the physical sovereignty, economic sovereignty, the technological sovereignty. We have been dealing with a trade war with the state, possible conflict with our neighboring countries. So that's why we have to defend ourselves. We never use our weapons to kill or invade the foreign territories right now, or like since 1970s after the Sino-Vietnam War. So we never kick out war because we prefer negotiations rather than war. But the Japanese people, the government, as I have heard right now, like China must change the attitude, and they have no right to ask us to follow their rules, to obey what they have said. So if you want to talk, we can talk peacefully. If we want to fight, so the Chinese government is also ready to deal with any situation, as I've mentioned before multiple times.
Professor Nagano, do you think that China has to change its attitude, and can Japan's statements be seen as part of a broader effort to counterbalance China's regional influence?
Okay, 2011 to 2020.
First, do you see that China has to change its attitude?
China's attitude is quite provocative. So if China changes the attitude, of course it will be solution. But at the same time, China changed the attitude, not only just provoke, but also the increasing defense budget is also matter. Because from 2011 to 2020, China increased 76% of its military budget. But other countries, for example, Japan, increased only 2%. Exactly 2.4, but is very small compared with the 76% China did. So completely different situation created by China in this region. So if China changes such attitude, of course it will be the solution. We can live peacefully. But at the same time, will China change this attitude? There is a few possibility, I believe. But if China changes attitude, yes, this is good, of course.
Okay, can Japan's statements be seen as part of a broader effort to counterbalance China's regional influence?
Of course, if China tries to hegemonic country in this region, Japan will resist it. Of course, Japan will not accept China's domination in this region. Because Japan is not China. Japan is not part of China. That is clear.
And what about Taiwan, sir?
Pardon?
What about Taiwan?
Sorry, I cannot listen because of the technical problem.
What about Taiwan?
Taiwan? Of course, Taiwanese people do not wish to be part of China. So that is a very important thing. But at the same time, this time, Japan said it's simple. If China start to invade Taiwan, that is a crisis for Japan too. But so that's why we did not say anything about the sovereignty in this case. But the personal feeling, emotion in the Japanese, despite the Taiwanese people do not want to live in China, if China invade Taiwan militarily and occupy Taiwan, Taiwanese people will be the sad situation, and international community stop China, we think. And Japan could be the international community with the US, Philippines, Australia, or India, or other country if everyone believe China's way is violation against the international rule.
We'll keep in
That's
touch,
it,
sir, and we'll keep, of course, following up on what's going on the ground. And, of course, we extend sincere thanks to Mr. Marvin Lee and Professor Satoru Nagano for sharing their expertise in illuminating this complex geopolitical issue. Thank you very much for both of you and for your time.